Early morning at a massive aircraft parts manufacturing plant. Red warning lights flashed continuously. Production lines stood motionless. Hundreds of workers watched helplessly. Every passing minute meant tens of thousands of dollars lost, a total of $2 million per day. Among the arguing engineers, a man in worn work coveralls was quietly cleaning machinery oil, observing everything. He knelt down, tapped gently on a pipe, heard an unusual sound, then looked up. "I think I know where the blockage is." Meet Mark Dawson, 38 years old, single father, former chief technician in the military who was discharged after a shoulder injury ended his service career. Now he works the night shift cleaning and maintaining equipment at Orion Aero Parts factory, supporting his 10-year-old son Ben on his own. Ben loves building model airplanes and often sits in the corner of the employee break room, waiting for his dad's shift to end. The boy has inherited his father's fascination with how things work, constantly asking questions about engines and hydraulics. That morning, Mark was still cleaning machinery when emergency sirens wailed throughout the main production floor. A critical production line had shut down completely, causing an estimated $2 million in losses per day. Management, lead engineers, and outside consultants gathered to find the cause. But after 3 hours, they remained completely stumped. The problem seemed impossible to locate. All primary systems showed normal readings. Computer diagnostics found nothing wrong, yet the entire line refused to operate. Mark happened to walk past during his cleaning rounds and overheard fragments of their discussion about abnormal air pressure readings. The conversation triggered a memory from his Navy days. He'd encountered a similar failure on an aircraft carrier, where the problem wasn't with the main machinery, but with an overlooked secondary valve. Mark hesitated, knowing he was just maintenance staff. But seeing Ben sitting patiently in the corner, waiting for him to finish work, made him think, "I can't just stand here and watch." These weren't just numbers on a balance sheet. This factory employed hundreds of families. Every day of shutdown meant people worried about their jobs, their mortgages, their children's futures. Mark had learned in the military that when you see a problem you can solve, you have a responsibility to act. Rank and titles matter less than results when lives and livelihoods are at stake. He approached the group of frustrated engineers and managers clustered around the control panel. "Excuse me," Mark said quietly, his voice steady but respectful. "Could I try checking something?" "Just 5 minutes." Several engineers looked at him with barely concealed irritation. This was a multi-million-dollar technical crisis, not something for a janitor to handle. But Mark had spent 15 years maintaining complex pressure systems on naval vessels. He understood that sometimes the most expensive problems have the simplest solutions. You just need to know where to look. The factory's future hung in the balance, and Mark was about to prove that experience trumps credentials every single time. If you believe that sometimes the overlooked person holds the key to solving the biggest problems, stay with us. You'll want to know what happens next. Initially, the lead engineer frowns at Mark's request. "You're not authorized to interfere with production equipment." Mark responds calmly. "Just 5 minutes to check something. I won't need to shut down any additional systems." The factory CEO, present at the scene due to the crisis, signals permission to let Mark try. "What do you have to lose?" the CEO asks his engineers. "We're already dead in the water." Mark follows the air pressure lines, tapping gently along each section until the sound changes at one point hidden behind a dust shield. The engineers watch skeptically as this maintenance worker methodically examines their multi-million-dollar system with nothing but his ears and basic tools. Mark removes the dust shield and immediately spots the problem: a broken metal fragment lodged in a secondary valve, causing pressure inconsistencies that trigger the system's automatic safety shutdown. "There," Mark says, pointing to the tiny piece of debris. "That fragment is throwing off your pressure readings by just enough to confuse the safety protocols." The lead engineer peers closer. "How did you even know to look there? Our diagnostics showed all primary pressure systems were normal." Because your diagnostics only check the main lines, Mark explains. In the Navy, we learned that secondary valves fail first, but they're often overlooked because they're not part of standard diagnostic routines. Mark uses his maintenance tools to carefully extract the metal fragment, checks the valve mechanism, and signals for the system restart. The engineers exchange nervous glances. They've spent 3 hours and consulted multiple specialists. Now a janitor is claiming he can fix their crisis with a simple debris removal. "Are you sure about this?" the CEO asks. Mark nods confidently. "This type of failure is more common than you'd think. The broken piece probably came loose during normal vibration and worked its way into the worst possible spot." The CEO gives the order, "Restart the system." Everyone holds their breath as the startup sequence begins. For 30 seconds, nothing happens. Warning lights continue flashing. The production floor remains silent. Then, suddenly, the sound changes. The smooth hum of machinery returns. Pressure readings stabilize. Warning lights switch from red to green one by one. The entire production line roars back to life as if it had never been broken. The spike moment. The entire group stands in stunned silence, then erupts in spontaneous applause. Workers throughout the factory cheer as they see their stations coming back online. The CEO stares at Mark like he's just witnessed a miracle. "How long did that take you? 15 minutes? 12 minutes, Mark says simply. "I learned in the military that every system has one small weak point that can shut down the entire operation. Find that point, and you solve the whole problem." The lead engineer, humbled, extends his hand to Mark. "Where did you serve?" "USS Enterprise. 15 years maintaining pressure systems for aircraft launch operations. When those systems fail, planes can't take off. When planes can't take off, missions fail." The CEO pulls Mark aside. "We need to talk. Privately." As the production floor returns to normal operation, saving the company $2 million per day, Mark realizes he's just changed his life forever. But what he doesn't know yet is that news of the maintenance worker who saved the factory is already spreading throughout the company. And sometimes, the right person being in the right place at the right time can change not just one life, but an entire organization's understanding of where true value comes from. Ben waves excitedly from the break room window, having watched his dad become a hero without even trying to be one. The boy doesn't fully understand what just happened, but he knows his father did something important, something that made all the worried adults smile again. After the crisis ends, Mark assumes he'll return to his normal cleaning duties, but the CEO calls him to the executive office instead. "Mark, I need to know more about your background," the CEO says, settling behind his desk. "What you just did, that wasn't luck." Mark explains his 15 years maintaining hydraulic and pressure systems aboard the USS Enterprise, how he specialized in troubleshooting failures that could ground entire flight operations. "Why are you working maintenance here instead of engineering?" the CEO asks. "Single dad," Mark replies simply. "Night shift lets me take Ben to school and pick him up every day. Engineering positions require travel, overtime, weekend emergencies. I can't do that to him." The CEO nods thoughtfully. "What if I offered you a full-time technical advisor position, 4 times your current salary, flexible schedule, and no required travel?" Mark hesitates. The money would change everything for Ben. Better school, college fund, opportunities Mark never imagined. But he's learned to be suspicious of offers that sound too good. "Why?" Mark asks. "You have engineers with advanced degrees." "Because degrees don't teach instinct," the CEO responds. "You solved in 12 minutes what our entire engineering team couldn't figure out in 3 hours. That's not just experience, that's intuition." Mark considers the offer carefully. "I'd need to maintain my schedule around Ben's school." "Whatever works for you," the CEO agrees. "I'm more interested in keeping your expertise here than micromanaging your hours." When Mark picks up Ben that afternoon, he struggles with how to explain the job offer. "Dad, everyone's talking about what you did," Ben says excitedly during the drive home. Mrs. Patterson in the cafeteria said you saved everyone's jobs. I just fixed a broken valve, buddy. No, you did more than that, Ben insists with 10-year-old clarity. You made sure all the other dads and moms can keep working. That evening, Mark accepts the CEO's offer. 1 week later comes the twist moment that changes everything. The CEO arranges a factory tour for Ben, showing him the exact production line his father saved. As they walk through the facility, Ben carries his latest model airplane, a detailed replica of an F-18 Hornet. This is the line that makes parts for real planes like this, the CEO explains to Ben, pointing to the model. My dad worked on real planes too, Ben says proudly. Big ones on ships. When they reach the valve where Mark made his repair, Ben kneels down and examines it closely, just like he's seen his father do with machinery. Dad taught me that every machine has a weak spot. Ben tells the CEO, you have to listen to find it. The CEO is amazed by Ben's mechanical intuition and asks Mark about it later. He gets it from his mother too, Mark explains. She was an engineer before she died. Ben's got both our curiosity genes. How would you feel about Ben joining our summer youth engineering program? The CEO asks. We partner with the local high school for kids interested in manufacturing and design. Mark realizes this opportunity could shape Ben's entire future. He'd love that. Your son has the same instincts you do, the CEO observes. He looks at problems differently than most kids his age. The twist deepens when Ben approaches Mark after the tour with an unexpected request. Dad, can you teach me how to fix the really important stuff, like you do? You mean mechanical repair? I mean helping people, Ben clarifies. When you fixed that machine, you helped hundreds of families. I want to learn how to help people like that too. Mark realizes his son has understood something profound about the connection between technical skills and human impact. Okay, buddy, but first you need to finish your homework and keep building those model planes. Deal, Ben grins. But can we start with something easy? Maybe the broken faucet in our kitchen? Mark laughs, remembering his own childhood fascination with taking things apart and putting them back together. As they walk back to the car, Mark reflects on how dramatically their lives have changed in just 1 week. He went from invisible maintenance worker to valued technical advisor. Ben went from waiting in break rooms to touring production lines as an honored guest. But the most important change isn't financial or professional. It's Ben seeing his father not just as a dad, but as someone whose skills matter to the world. And that lesson will shape Ben's entire understanding of his own potential. The story of the maintenance worker who saved the production line spreads throughout Orion Aero Parts like wildfire. Workers share it internally as a lesson about respecting every level of expertise, regardless of job titles or uniforms. The night shift crew, who used to barely acknowledge Mark, now greet him with genuine respect. Day shift engineers actively seek his input on challenging mechanical problems. Mark's the guy who saved our jobs becomes a common phrase heard throughout the factory floors. The CEO tells Mark's story at the quarterly industry conference, emphasizing a key message. We pay for skills and results, not just degrees and titles. Other manufacturing executives take notes, realizing they might be overlooking valuable expertise within their own maintenance crews. Back at the factory, Mark begins training the entire maintenance team on identifying the type of failure that nearly cost the company millions. His informal classes become some of the most attended training sessions in company history. Ben keeps a framed photo of himself and his father standing in front of the repaired production line. He calls it his superhero picture and shows it proudly to classmates and teachers. During the summer engineering program, Ben impresses instructors with his natural diagnostic abilities. When a training robot malfunctions, Ben listens carefully and suggests checking a loose connection in the power supply. He's right. Your son has exceptional mechanical intuition, the program director tells Mark. We'd like him to mentor younger students next summer. 6 months later, Mark presents his first major system improvement proposal to the board of directors. His design for predictive maintenance protocols could prevent similar shutdowns across all production lines. The board approves his proposal unanimously, authorizing a $2 million implementation budget. Funny how that matches exactly what we would have lost in one day, the CEO remarks with a smile. After the presentation, Mark finds Ben waiting in the lobby, homework spread across a coffee table. "How did it go, Dad?" Ben asks, looking up from his math problems. "They approved the new system," Mark replies. "It'll help prevent breakdowns before they happen." "So you're not just fixing things anymore," Ben observes. "You're making sure they don't break in the first place." Mark realizes his 10-year-old son has perfectly summarized the evolution of his career. "That's exactly right. Buddy, prevention is better than repair." "Kinda like how you take care of me," Ben says matter-of-factly. "You don't wait for problems. You make sure I'm okay before anything goes wrong." The comment hits Mark more powerfully than any board approval or salary increase. He's not just teaching Ben about machines and systems. He's showing him what it means to be someone others can depend on. Looking around the corporate lobby where Ben now does homework while waiting for his dad, no longer in a break room corner, but in the executive wing, Mark understands that some changes go far beyond money or job titles. They transform how a child sees both his father and his own possibilities. "I wasn't the factory engineer. I was just the guy who cleaned oil and swept floors every night. But when I saw that entire production line sitting silent, I knew I'd encountered this problem before, and I couldn't stay quiet." In the military, I learned that one small detail can save an entire ship or sink it. Life works the same way. We don't always need authority or fancy titles to make a difference. Sometimes we just need enough observation, enough courage, and enough responsibility to step forward. Ben often tells his friends, "My dad saved the whole factory." But what I really did was show him that your background doesn't limit your impact. If you believe that sometimes you'll be the one to step up at exactly the right moment, stay with us. Who knows? The next story might be yours.